Our subject in this breakout session is growing an educated workforce. So, we have some experts here and me, and we're going to start at the end of the table. You know me, and they have to get the first word in because we are going to get the last word. Right, Danielle?
That's right.
Okay, Melvin Everson, take it away.
Well, thank you all so much for being here this morning. I'm Melvin Everson, formerly House Representative out of District 106 in Snellville, Georgia, covering Snellville, portions of Lawrenceville, Lilburn, Grayson, Loganville, and all stops in between. And after that was elected, after Governor Deal was elected, he appointed me to be a part of his administration to lead the Georgia Commission, the Governor's Office of Workforce Development for the state of Georgia, reporting directly to the governor. I did that for 7 months, and then I got elevated up to a 2-division agency, the Georgia Commission on Equal Opportunity, where we handle employment issues as well as housing issues for the entire state of Georgia when it comes to employment and housing, mirroring the National Fair Housing Act of 1968 and the National Fair Employment Practice Act of 1978 to ensure all Georgians have an equal opportunity when it comes to housing as well as employment. And anyone that has issue with any of those areas, they can register a complaint with our office, and we will do a thorough investigation of that complaint to see if it has merit or it's just bogus, and we will dismiss it if it is. And if it has merit, then we will try to or attempt to adjudicate it through administrative law judge hearing for the state of Georgia. So I travel a lot around the state, and I see the economic picture in the state, particularly when it comes to the workforce. As we come out of this recession that we're currently in, and I can still say that we're slowly coming out of it, we have to make certain here in the state of Georgia that our workforce is ready to meet the demands of the new jobs that will become available. And as we go further into the presentation, I'll share some stats with you to give you a better perspective on where we are. As I stated in my opening comments, if we're not careful, once this economy rebounds, we won't have the labor force to meet the demands of the jobs that's going to be created, and so we're going to be back to square one. And to further expand our economic opportunity, we have to ensure that our institutions of learning are collectively tying into what the business community is wanting when they look for employees to put to work, because if we're missing that component there, those businesses, trust you me, they will look elsewhere for that workforce, and that's not good for anyone, because when they go, the jobs go, and the tax base that they provide for us will be significantly reduced, and the burden of providing those needed services will fall upon the homeowners in each respective county. When I was on the city council, I do know as far as a revenue base, it's good to have a combination, a formula of 60% business revenue coming in versus 40% residential taxes coming in. If that equation flips to 50-50, you're in trouble economically. If it goes 60-40 the other direction, where the homeowners are paying the taxes, you're in trouble. So in order to keep that balance, we have to make sure our workforce is ready for the jobs that will be provided. So and that's what I'm going to be talking about, what I have experienced in the state of Georgia, traveling through the state of Georgia. And I want to add this, that there are 25 technical colleges in the system, Georgia Technical College system, which they provide the backbone of our workforce, and I'll talk to you a little more about that. I have personally visited all 25 technical colleges, met each president, been on the campuses, spoke to each president. The 35 universities in the system, including the flagship of Georgia, I have personally visited every university, community college in the state of Georgia. And that's why when I say I've been to all 159 counties, I've been there. I've spoken to their chambers of commerce. I've had meetings with their business leaders in those communities, telling me what it is they're seeing that we are not providing when it comes to the workforce, as far as what they're looking for when they look to hire someone. I've held high-level meetings with executives of Coca-Cola, Rubbermaid, Northrop and Grumman, Martin Marietta, the plant up, the facility up in Marietta, Lockheed, I should say. And what they're sharing with me presents a challenge, but it's a golden opportunity for Georgia to set the pace for this economic recovery. As I shared with you earlier, we are moving into advanced manufacturing now. More automobile manufacturing companies are relocating to the South and any other part of this nation. That's what's going to lead us out of this economic downturn that we're in. But we have to ensure, as leaders, we have to prepare to make sure our workforce is there to take us to that next level as we move further into the 21st century. So that's my opening statement, and I turn it over to Ms. Danielle.
Thank you. Well, I'm with the Georgia Center for Opportunity, which is a nonprofit that's a think tank. We also do grassroots work with school choice. And I'm originally from Rochester, New York, and people ask, well, how did you end up in Georgia? Well, my mama's name is Beulah May, and she's from Perry, Georgia.
Awesome county.
And when I grew up, the only vacation we ever took was driving from Rochester to Perry 3 times a year. So, you know, growing up, it was interesting to be in a community where that community was made up of a lot of working class who moved from the South so that they can find jobs. So when I hear stats such as the manufacturing stat that you mentioned earlier, going from 45% to 15%, it's very disheartening because in Rochester, New York, there was, you know, a lot of Kodak plants, General Motors, and now when you go back, a lot of vacant lots, empty factories. I'm here because of Kodak, to be honest. My dad made film, black and white team. So it's interesting to now just see a community that is pretty much in despair. Education is very important. The quality of education is important. The great thing about Georgia is that there's a trend now to get students to be problem solvers and thinkers and learn how to work in teams, especially in our charter schools. I've been in a lot of our charter schools, almost all of our state charter schools, so that's the thing that's promising. I'm hoping that we can start to see that in our public school system with our charter system schools. That's one thing that we need to work towards. But the main reason why I'm in this education work, and I don't tell too many people this, so I can't believe I'm saying this publicly, but when I was growing up, someone would ask, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? After I learned I couldn't be Tina Turner, I said, you know what I want to be? I want to be the woman who reads the lottery numbers. Because every time people got off work, that's what my family just gathered around, all the men in my family, like, what are the numbers today? And so I don't know if anyone remember, but there used to be these little neon pegs that you can put on your bike, so when you're riding, it'll keep moving and making these sounds. So I would flip my bike over, and I would turn the wheel, and I have no idea why my friends participated in this, with their little numbers, and I said, and the first ball up. It's 1 and the next. It's 3 and the last. It's 6. You're winning New York State lotto numbers today. And then my mom said, you know what? You have to explore your other options. I'm glad that you want to do New York State lottery numbers, and that's great. I don't know what that entails. Maybe acting, I'm not sure. But, you know, you have to do something else. What else is there to do? We already talked about Tina Turner. You can't do that. What else are you passionate about? And, you know, I was like, well, I have no idea until one day I got angry about how my cousin who lived in the inner city had a different education experience from me. And I thought, well, I don't understand this. What's the difference between a public school and Nazareth Academy? You know, I don't understand why he's having a different experience than I am. And so that's what led me into education. And then when I come back to Perry, Georgia, I see my cousin who has no idea what he wants to be, no idea what he wants to do. And then he says, you know what, I want to work at McDonald's. And in Perry at that time, the local McDonald's said, you can't work here unless you have a high school diploma. And he dropped out. And so what does that mean? So for me, when I think about the importance of workforce, the importance of the role in education, so often we get stuck on standards, we get stuck on test scores, but what about giving students the opportunity to dream? and letting them know that there are options, especially in your rural areas, that you know, it's important to support someone, but my whole thing is letting them know, you know, here's an opportunity for you to explore what are you good at, what do you excel at, and that college can be an option for you. You know, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, whatever you want to do, it can be an option, and needing to support students. So at the Georgia Center for Opportunity, that's what led us to starting the college and career pathways, where we're trying to say, you know what, a lot of guidance counselors are completely overwhelmed. And in some of your struggling districts, I had a guidance counselor tell me, Danielle, you know what, for the students who can do well and can exceed, they're placed low on my priority list because I have to figure out what are we going to do about our high school dropouts. That was the most disheartening thing I've heard. And so needing to take a stand for students who can go to college, who want to go to college, and need to know about, you know, what's the application process look like, what's the support system that's out there, teaching them and their parents about financial aid. That's what we're committed to doing, because there's a void in this state, and too often we don't recognize the role that guidance counselors can have in helping students to learn about their career options. And the great thing about choice is that in a lot of your choice schools, you'll see a college environment where they hang up all the different schools from across the nation. And sometimes teachers will have the school that they came from, the banner, you know, on their door. So it helps to create this culture of, you know, college going, that there's life after high school. Start thinking about this now, because learning never stops. So I'm excited to see where we're going, but I don't want to just see that in our charter schools. I also want to see that in our public schools as well.
Well, let me just say, education is not just about jobs. You know, we want to educate the whole person. There's a lot to education, and I have never taught in a public school. I'm actually terrified to teach in a public school because I'd smack some smart aleck kid. I mean, I just don't put up with that stuff. But I did homeschool all 4 of my children, 1st through 12th grade. And so that was my experience. And naturally, I wanted my children to be prepared to take a job of some sort when they graduated. That was really important to me that they do that. And sorry for the distracting pictures coming up. Maybe I should close that. Anyway, I'm going to do that real quick. Sorry. I realize all my whole photo album's coming up for your pleasure. There's no telling what's on there. Anyway, okay. So looking at that, we wanted our children to learn academically. We wanted to make sure they had what they needed there. But there are 2 things that they have to have, and that a lot of kids are graduating without now, in the state of Georgia and all around the United States. And that is soft skills, the skills of how to meet someone, how to shake hands appropriately, how to look somebody in the eye when you're talking to them. Have you met children lately who, I greet at church, I'm a greeter, very important position, but I like people, and so it's fun. It's the greatest job I've ever had in church, and so I stand there at the door and I say good morning to everybody, and I am amazed every week. You know, some kids come in and they go, hey, you know, and they're all, you know, and then some people, like you say good morning, and they do this.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10 they're middle school or high school that are doing that, or they're shy toddlers. Toddlers, I give them a pass. But by the time you get to middle school or high school, you ought to be able to look somebody in the eye and say good morning. Mm-hmm. And that is just one of those soft skills that we kind of take for granted, but I'm telling you, it's not happening out there in a lot of cases. Another thing is life skills, and that's a little different from soft skills. Life skill is how you manage your life. Herman Cain wrote a book called CEO of Self, which I love. I read it years ago. And that's true. We're all CEO of ourselves, if nothing else, right? He was CEO of a lot of Godfather's Pizza and had a lot of management positions. But we should at least be able to manage ourselves. We should be able to manage our time. We should be able to manage our money, make a budget, live from that budget. You know what? I think that some of these people have been watching Congress or something. They can't balance a budget or even create one. But anyway, so they need life skills. But we also want them to graduate from high school with some idea of the direction they're going in the workforce. We have way too many kids graduating with not the slightest notion of where they've been or where they're going. Now, how does that work out in the economy? Not well. I worked on a campaign before I came to work with AOP after I finished homeschooling. It's been a busy life, you know. But on this campaign, the person I was working for talked to a manager of a business in Georgia, down in South Georgia, and that man told him if he was going to hire 5 people, he had to start out with a pool of 100. 100. This was a manufacturing job, not a rocket science job. It was manufacturing. It took brains, but it didn't take even a college degree. But he had to have 100 people. The first half of those people would be knocked out with the drug test. The next half of the people, the next 25 that were left out of the 50, would be knocked out by the next 35 of the people would be knocked out by the 8th grade level math test and reading test. This wasn't algebra, 8th grade algebra. This was fractions, adding, subtracting, pretty basic stuff, small multipliers, that kind of thing. Couldn't pass the test. And then by the time he got through all that, because it takes a little time to go through 100 applicants and do the testing and take care of all that, then 10 of those people had found a job somewhere else or moved on. And so he had 5 people left to hire out of 100 applicants that he started out. This is a huge waste of time, and it's a sad reflection on the level of preparation and on the culture that we have developed. And I say we, I'm not pointing the finger at you, and I'm not pointing the finger at me, but as a state, we're all responsible, and we all live here, and we're responsible for bringing that culture up. We have a culture that is not focused on being productive. We have and I'm going to preach here, Melvin. I am sick and tired of hearing about self-esteem. Amen. You know how you create self-esteem? You give somebody skills that they need, and then you let them get out there and create their own self-esteem by accomplishment, not by telling them that you're just as good as everybody else, even if you're just sitting there doing nothing. We need to create value. We need to create value in education so that those kids can grow up, and during their education too, but certainly they can grow up to create their own self-esteem. I'm not against self-esteem. I want you to like yourself, and I like you too. But I'm just saying that is not the goal. It cannot be the goal. We are cheating children when we make that the goal of education. Our goals have got to be bigger and higher than that if we're going to serve our children, if we're going to serve the culture in the state, and if we're going to have an economy that's ready to do business.
Well, thank you. A couple of things here. I noticed when I was Workforce Development Director, even now, Executive Director, Governor's Office of Equal Opportunity. The one thing that Virginia and Danielle both have mentioned here, I can't stress enough how important this subject matter is. It was so important to the legislature passed a bill, I think it was sponsored by State Representative Matt Ramsey from Fayetteville, soft skills. I can't tell you the number of meetings I've been included in on and sat there and talked to the Executive Vice President from Rubbermaid to Coca-Cola to Kia Auto Manufacturing Plant down in West Point. When they mention the word soft skills, or the lack thereof, how it's adversely affecting our workforce statewide. I held and put together a town hall meetings with every technical college across the state of Georgia to address that legislation and get input from parents, faculty, and students from all over the state of Georgia. And I believe it was en route to my town hall meeting at Altamaha Tech in Jessup. While traveling to Jessup, Georgia, I received a phone call from the state of Oklahoma, a state senator out there who had gotten wind of the legislation Georgia had passed. And he said, "Oh my God, we are experiencing the same thing here in the state of Oklahoma." So it's not just Georgia that's suffering from soft skills. It's an epidemic nationwide. When we talk about soft skills, what are we talking about? She alluded to it earlier. A good work ethic. Honest days work for an honest day's pay. Appropriately dressed. That's a big one. And I'm going to touch on that one here with my own personal experience when I was recruited and hired for a Fortune 500 company, JCPenney Catalog. Reporting to work on time. I can't tell you the number of CEOs that have told me, "Mr. Everson, we can go without the analytical and technical skills. We'd much rather for them to have it. But if we just get them in the door on time, we can teach them and train them about everything it is they need to know about that job. But they have to they have to report to work." Personal experience. My company at the point, we had 2,500 employees. And during the peak season, Black Friday, Thanksgiving, all the way up to Christmas, our employment roll went to 4,000 to get the merchandise out. I was responsible for recruiting and hiring for Georgia Tech, University of Georgia Management, Howard. And in the middle of this one recruiting season, I'm sitting in my office as applicants filing through the door. And I noticed this young man, he was coming to apply for a warehouse position, nothing glamorous, but we were paying 14, 15 bucks an hour, pretty good money. Conveyor belts, the only thing he had to do was make sure the boxes didn't fall off the belt. That was it. And I noticed something, and my boss came and said, "Melvin, what's wrong?" I said, "Look at this gentleman here. He comes strolling through the door with a t-shirt on." And I said, "Oh my God, I don't believe you're coming to a job interview with that on. Not even a warehouse position." And I looked at my boss and I said, "What do you want me to do?" He said, "Handle it." Turned around and walked out. I said, "Okay, I'm going to handle it." I allowed him to complete the application. I called him in my office and went through the rudimentary procedures there. And I said, "Sir, I'm afraid I cannot go any further with this interview." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I need to ask you further questions, but I'm prohibited." He said, "Prohibited by what?" I said, "Your t-shirt." You know what he had written on his t-shirt? "Don't ask me, fill in the blank." This was in 2003. He specifically told me with this t-shirt, "Don't ask me, fill in the blank." And I proceeded to chastise him right there. I said, "Don't you ever go to another job interview dressed with this apparel you have on. I don't care if you are digging a ditch." The nerve. I'm about to give you a job making 14, 15 bucks an hour, but you're telling me, "Don't ask me." That experience, I said, my goodness. And I promise you, he walked out of there. He apologized. He said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "Well, best of luck on your next interview because you will not get this job." That's part of those soft skills. Southwire Cable Manufacturing Company down in Carroll County. How many of you are familiar with that? They produce all of your cable communication wires and etc. They implemented a program in Carroll County because they were hemorrhaging 30% school dropout rate in Carroll County. The CEO of that company and his management team got brainstormed and said, "We have a plan." They went to the Board of Education. And they said, we want to do this. All those at-risk students that are dropping out of school, we want you to give them to us. And you can Google this. It's called 12 for Life. And they said, well, we're going to take those kids. We're going to assign tutors. We're going to assign mentors. And we're going to take this facility of ours and we're going to spend $10 million of our own money and convert it into one of our facilities. And we're going to give those individuals a job. High school students, by the time they work through all the regulation, OSHA regs, and etc. And so we're going to pay them. We're going to incentivize their pay by promoting good work ethics, appropriately dressed, reporting their work on time, those soft skills. For every one of those satisfied, that they satisfy, we will pay them 50 cents an hour extra. The students, they run the entire facility, the shipping dock, the accuracy control, the safety area. Of course, they have 4 adult supervisors there for OSHA reason. And it's amazing when you Google that and see the testimony of those kids who were about to drop out of school and become another staff. Going back to what Danielle said, someone tapped into them to expose them to other career path options. Here's the reason why. Because we should prepare all of our little Johnnies and Susans to go to Morehouse, Georgia Tech, UGA, or wherever. Let's continue to do that. But we also have to be realists and understand that every little Tommy won't make it to Georgia Tech. So we need to expose them to other career path options out there. Look, Johnny, you like tinkering with cars. A technical school with 18 months of expert training and classroom lecture, get your certificate, and you are guaranteed a position out there in our technical college and placement rates of 9% and above. How many of you have taken your automobile to the repair shop lately? It is not cheap. Those individuals coming out of those technical colleges, on average, they make more than a person coming out of University of Georgia with a BS degree, on average, with half the price. So when I say think outside of the box, we're going to have to think outside the box and expose our students at an early age to other career path options, just in case little Johnny wants to be an underwater welder, making $160,000 a year. Now, shipyards in Virginia and down in New Orleans. Right now, Georgia Power, with the expansion of Plant Vogtle, do you realize we had to import welders in for the state of Georgia? That's why Governor Deal launched this Go Build Georgia to get more of our students into our technical colleges to build Georgia as this economy turns around. You remember what I said about when the economy finally turns around, jobs that were lost, many of those will not come back. But they will be replaced with jobs that will require a new set of skills. And if we're not preparing our workforce for those jobs, we could easily find ourselves back into the situation in which we're in now. And that's why we're pushing to expose our kids. If you want to go to a 4-year college, fine. Technical college is another opportunity for you because there are many, many areas in our technical college system now in which we're working feverishly to fill those pipelines for those jobs. Up in the carpet industry, up in Dalton, the gentleman told me within 2 years we would need 4,000 maintenance technicians. Average salary $48,000 to $50,000 starting per year. We have to get those individuals in those positions. Well-paying, decent, honest living. So, as I was sharing with you, the stats are 60% of the jobs that will become available as we move further into the 21st century will require credentials beyond high school. Back to your point, 60%. Right now, Georgia has 1.5 million citizens without a high school diploma. Right now, 1.5 million. I was visiting a GED class down in Southeastern Tech in Thomasville, Georgia. I stereotyped the class before I got there. Not by race or anything, but by age. I expected to see an overwhelming number of upper age individuals in the classroom. There's about 50-something students in the classroom. And I walked in there and I was shocked. I was flabbergasted. 70% of the students were under the age of 30. And I asked the instructor, I said, help me understand what I'm witnessing here. She said, Director Everson, it's simple. A few of them had some family issues at home. She said, but the vast majority of them, they did not see any relevance to the rigor in the classroom. They got bored, burnt out, and they dropped out. In other words, they didn't see what we were imparting to them in the classroom, how it could be beneficial to them in the long run. We're going to have to make that connection, find out what it is that they're interested in, get them in that arena. If it's a career academy, a lot of our schools are popping up with career academies now, with these career tracks, they're taking off. And we're going to have to figure out how we will be able to do this statewide to salvage those individuals that are dropping out of high school. As I said before, because anything, when a person drops out, okay, it's costing you and I both money. Because statistics have proven, overwhelming number of those individuals will end up in our human cargo warehouses called jail. And on average, it costs us $56,000 a year to incarcerate one prisoner. So it behooves us to be proactive on education, flip this thing around when it comes to education, with creative and innovative thinking to prepare our workforce. I'm here to tell you, if we don't, we're going to reap the sad repercussions behind that. As I said before, South Park, you can Google that. The angle should be college career ready, as you stated earlier. Prepare them for college, but also expose them for other career options. Yes.
Is it really the responsibility of Southwire or even the schools to teach these children soft skills, how to dress, and so forth? Isn't it the parents' responsibility in the final analysis to make sure their kids are learning, make sure the kids understand what education means, how to dress, how to interact with people? Maybe we should have a license to have children, I don't know. In the final analysis, it's the parents, really.
It is. It is.
That's true, but I want to say, and then I'll let you guys comment as well. Absolutely, every part of education is the parents' responsibility. I think it's a biblical mandate that we teach our children in the way they should go. Unfortunately, a lot of our children are having children now. A lot of them are not prepared, and that's what I was talking about, the cultural thing. We have a cultural problem that has to be solved, and that's one thing that Danielle's organization is very focused on. They kind of are very multi-purpose and focused on those cultural elements. But in the meantime, we have a responsibility that has to be taken up, or nothing's going to get better. I mean, I don't like taking the responsibility for other people's children, but we have it.
It's the way
So it's it's a great question.
The other important thing to remember too, that I have to make sure I remember in my line of work, is not all students have parents. So it's sad when you meet a student and you don't know what that student has been through. So, you know, the other thing is that sometimes even the parents don't know, because their parents didn't know. And so they don't have anything to model that. So I love how charter schools embrace that we have to have a culture in our school, and they have a culture night for parents, and they hold parents up to a new type of accountability. And so you see parents starting to have more self-esteem, and they have this new sense of, I need to make sure that I'm accountable because I had this wonderful opportunity. And if my child is modeling this, you start seeing parents now model what the kids learned in school. But I do believe that it starts in home, and I learned from just being active in church. It's unfortunate that we don't talk about the church's role as well.
That's right. That's true.
Before we go, you make a good point. When I had my town hall meeting in Camden County, which I believe has the highest graduation rate for high school in the state of Georgia, Camden County, that very same question came up, and that's the question we have to debate, dialogue, and come up with a solution for. It is the proper role of the parents. As you stated before, a lot of these kids are coming from homes where there is no role model as a parent. So inevitably, it affects the workforce. Inevitably, it affects our tax rate. Inevitably, it affects society. So what do you do? That's the million-dollar question. But I can tell you, having sat in meetings with CEOs around this state, attended Chamber of Commerce meetings, it's coming up all over this country. There is a fundamental gap, and we have to get that buy-in for the parents. And I agree with you. Parents have to get back to being parents and stop allowing the schools to be a massive daycare center. A certain degree of work should take place at home before that child gets to school. And we as parents, and in general, not us in here, we have delegated that authority and ability to the schools. Well, they're going to do everything. We educate, we medicate, we feed, so where are the parents? And there's a breakdown in society, if you ask me. And that's exactly what's happening. But we have to flip the script and get parents back involved to the point where, no, you have some personal accountability and responsibility to do your job, and we'll do our part, but you must first do what you're supposed to do as a parent. And once that happens, I think you'll see a dramatic shift. The pendulum will swing the other way. It's not going to occur overnight because we didn't get here overnight, but I'm here to tell you we have to address this, because if we don't, it's like a cancer. It will grow and grow, and it will consume every fiber of your being.
That's true, and let me say that one reason I love school choice is that it puts parents in the driver's seat of making them think. You know, in other words, before there was one choice for most people, or that they knew of anyway. There was only one choice, and so that's no choice. There's only one choice, that's no choice. And so everybody kind of did, you know, the public school traditional route. Nearly everybody did that. Now we have great options available in the state of Georgia. I am so proud. When I go around the state of Georgia, I actually do a thing called Educational Freedom. We call it our Educational Freedom Tour. And we've been all around the state of Georgia. I think we've done about 30 meetings at least, maybe 50, I don't know. It's been a lot. But we talk about, you know, online learning. We talk about homeschool. We talk about charter schools. We talk about private schools and the SSOs that support those. And all the different, and we talk about that there are good public schools out there too. You choose what's best for your child. That's what we encourage people to do. We also have a special needs scholarship. I think that's fabulous because it puts the parents in the driver's seat. For some of those parents, that's the first thing they've been asked to do for their kid practically since they were born, besides change diapers. And that's a huge decision that's going to affect that child for the rest of their lives. And so the more we can get out there and make people aware of our options and empower those parents to be in, you know, if you made a decision that your child's going to go to the school and somebody criticizes you, the last thing you're going to do is let your child fail in that school, because then it's on you. You know, if you can sit back and blame the school system, you will do that. You know, if that's your only choice, it's easy to sit back and complain. But if you're given a choice and then you can get out there and help that child succeed, I think it could be a big culture change. I also would like to see us, from a policy perspective, take a look at how we counsel students, how we direct students. Again, you've got way too many people doing sports medicine, way more than we could possibly absorb into the workforce. And I think that the legislature needs to look at how we fund higher education. Do we really want to put as much money into a philosophy degree? Now, I love philosophy. That's one of my favorite courses in college. But do we really want to put as much money into that philosophy degree as we do into a welding program where they can actually get out and get a job with that? You know, we just really might want to look at it. And I would say that that wouldn't be available if you wanted to have a philosophy degree. But, you know, maybe you should pay for that and not all of us. So anyway, okay, we got some great questions, I know. Rhonda?
One thing, I just wonder what the unemployment numbers are right now for that age group of kids who are going into college. I know it's extremely high, and Georgia in itself is extremely high anyway for everyone. And also, secondly, that the numbers, maybe statistics or amounts of money that are wasted by corporations and industry on having to retrain these students. I know my husband works at CBeyond, and they spend thousands and thousands of dollars and so much time trying to teach these soft skills you're talking about. And I wonder if you have a hard number for, I know we're losing to states nearby on hiring.
I could get you a hard number, but off the top of my head, those individuals without those credentials, I do know the unemployment rate is 10 to 15% higher than the individual with that degree. And that's the same as with the salary person without that. Remember that stat I gave you, 60%? Okay, 40% of those will require some technical degrees. In other words, what I'm saying is no longer will one degree satisfy the job market. Businesses are looking for individuals with those credentials, 2 degrees. I know I toured Gwinnett Technical College up in my county there. 50% of the students have advanced degrees. You go South Georgia, the numbers are running about the same. Why? Back to your point about these degrees in areas where they don't provide an opportunity for you to provide a job, to provide the necessary means for your family to take care of them. And Chancellor Huckabee and I have spoken about that, and I can say the university systems and the technical college system and the business communities are sitting at the table for the first time to see what it is they're going to need when it comes to the workforce. So these institutions of learning can produce that workforce. There is no need for me to produce 200,000 individuals with a psychology degree when I need individuals over here with a technical degree. It's out of whack. In the country of Finland, 45% of their high school students, they choose career path options versus a 4-year institution. It's almost an even balance because I use this picture. If I have a medical degree and I'm a surgeon from the Medical College of Georgia, and I'm in the operating room, and I have a patient on the table, and a piece of equipment breaks down, I'm not calling another surgeon. I'm calling someone with that technical degree to get that piece of equipment up and running again because that person's life is at stake. But if I don't have that in the pipeline as far as the workforce, we're out of balance. And that's where the problem lies. We have to bring it into parity to make sure we are providing and producing an equal number of individuals for all of these jobs to make the workforce flow smoothly. And that's where we're missing it now. How do you get there? That's the million-dollar question. But I think the first step is communication, and they are sitting at the table talking about that because I know they look at the labor statistics as far as what the job market will require as we move further into the 21st century, and they align their curriculums based upon what they see that labor report identifying.
Another point about that too, Rhonda, is that the unemployment rate for high school dropouts is 3 times, even in a good economy, is 3 times the rate of the unemployment rate for someone with a high school diploma. And their unemployment rate is twice that of a person with a college degree. So education does make a difference in unemployment. That's not to say that some people cannot take a non-traditional path. I have a daughter who decided to be an NRA certified gun instructor. I mean, what can I say? She didn't finish college, but she makes great money and she's productive and she's got the work ethic. So we just need to make sure that we treat people as individuals, but there are certain basic cultural norms, dress, showing up on time, doing all those things that we need for everybody, for every student. Every student should get that.
Right. I think one important thing that we're missing is teaching students to be entrepreneurs. I think it's important that students know that if plan A doesn't work and if plan B doesn't work, you gotta create your own opportunity, especially now after what we're seeing now in this economic time, because there are so many different opportunities. When you allow students to be problem solvers and thinkers and work in teams, there's so many soft skills and life skills that can come out of that. I like how Virginia mentioned the life skills piece because people don't talk about budgeting. Why don't we have standards on, since you want to do standards, how about standards on financial literacy? What about that? That's important. What about standards on networking? When you talk about getting a job, there's a huge networking piece that's important. So, when I think about the way that school should include in its culture those type of norms. It's encouraging when you hear that in some of our charter schools, but I'm tired of it just being in our 75, 76 charter schools. And then getting back to your point in terms of, you know, parents and teaching these soft skills and starting at home. You know, I have a cousin who is in a KIPP school, a charter school. And mom was very excited. And she was one of those moms who's very engaged. And when she was in the traditional public school, the teacher thought she was too engaged. And I know what's going on in my classroom. Please stop emailing me. So she said, let me go to a charter school because there's better interaction. And she called me up frustrated, saying, I don't understand why Jarrell is on, why he's suspended. You know, every charter school has their own little term. So, yeah, I don't understand why he's in the parking lot or whatever it's called. And so it's not fair because I was supposed to sign it and I forgot, and now you want to penalize him. So I called up the person who's in charge of all the KIPP schools. I said, well, you know what, my cousin is very frustrated because, you know, Jarrell is suspended because his mom didn't sign the document that she's supposed to sign. And he said, rightfully so. That parent signed a contract saying she was going to go by our rules. Our rules is that he's accountable for his own success. So he should have reminded his mom to sign the paper. There's no ifs, no ands, no buts. You're my friend Danielle, but your cousin will be suspended. And so I had to have a conversation with my cousin and said, you know, I want you to know I talked to the person in charge of all the KIPP schools, and I'm sorry, he has to continue to be suspended because...
What about his self-esteem, though?
Exactly.
Those are the life skills and soft skills.
Actually, that dovetails into, I heard just recently that they're going to stop issuing zeros because when a child gets a zero, it's too devastating to their GPA. And it's, if they don't do an assignment, they don't get a zero anymore, that they're going to issue them a 50 because it's just too devastating to their GPA and their self-esteem to get a zero. And they're going to issue them 50s instead. Kind of like they stopped using red ink because that was also hurtful.
The sad thing is that the consequence of that is when they go into the real job market.
Of course.
You know, it's not going to be a pat on the back, oh, it's okay. It's going to be, you're fired. You know?
Well, what's the incentive to actually do the project if you think, well, if I don't do it, I'll just get a 50 versus, there's no, you know, will I do it?
I'm going to pull a story out of my hall of shame. For my school time, I had a teacher who came in and he said, I give gigs for bad behavior. And if you get so many gigs, you get a B and C and D and F. And me and my best friend looked at each other and said, how quick do you reckon we can get that F? And then we're unaccountable for the rest of the year. Or the rest of the semester, and we got it pretty quick. But that F called something to my parents' attention that needed to be fixed. And I think it is horrible. And there's another thing going on in the grade situation that I have to bring up, and that concerns the Hope Scholarship. I know teachers who have had their very lives threatened by parents because they would not give Johnny a B when Johnny had earned a C or a D or an F. Because they said, you, teacher, are ruining his life. And this even extends back into middle school. A middle school teacher I know, she quit teaching because she had so many parents call her up because the children were not performing. And so she wouldn't recommend them for the college track, but they thought, well, the Hope Scholarship's out there. All kids in Georgia can go to college now, which is a bad idea anyway. But there's a serious problem with grading. A B here does not equal a B over there. A B in South Georgia, and even in the public school, does not equal a B in North Georgia, which does not equal a B in Metro Atlanta, which sure as heck didn't equal a B in my home school. You know, I mean, in other words, there's all kinds of different standards, and you cannot judge on letter grades alone, and you cannot judge on standardized tests alone. My oldest daughter is here today. She's a pharmacist, and she hated standardized tests. She reached the highest level of educational attainment of any of my kids, and probably makes the most money, I don't know, of any of them, but she hated standardized tests, but she was a very bright student and she could watch you do something. There's all kinds of different intelligence out there, but there is a grading problem, and there is that problem of we're more worried about self-esteem than reality. And I think we need a bigger dose of reality in our public schools. I'm going to let these other folks comment on this, and then we'll take one more question, because it's about time to get some lunch. I smell it. Okay.
Melvin, but based on your inspirational story and the success that was realized, what would you say was the main reason?
Oh, awesome.
What was, I can speculate, but what would you say was the main driving force of the brilliance of how that was structured for that program?
As I shared with the students at University of North Georgia on yesterday, I have a very, very strong father figure. I don't know, you know this story, and I share it everywhere I go because I'm so proud of him. World War II graduate. My dad had a 5th grade education. It was 10 of us. 2 of my brothers are deceased, and he dared to dream. And my mom was what they call a teacher's aide at that point, 1 year of college. My dad dared to dream that all of his kids would finish high school, something he was not able to do. And we worked extremely hard. We were farmers. We got up before the school bus arrived to pull produce to put on the back of his truck so he could take to the school cafeteria for the lunchroom staff to prepare lunch for the other kids. We did that before we went to school. All of us successfully graduated from high school, and we all remember that because we talk about it every time we get together. All of us got the same gift from him on graduation day from high school because he didn't want one to be envious and jealous of the other. You got a 2-piece set of Samsonite luggage. You were gone. College or trade school. And failure was not an option. And they shared with us, Mom did too, each day you got up. Don't depend on anyone to do anything for you. God has given you the breath in your body and the intellect in your mind to go out and make it happen. Don't depend on the government. Every day you get up, you make it happen. And that has driven me to this day, even though my dad has been gone since '87, my mom's been gone to '96. And the one thing that stays with me to this day in his own vernacular growing up then, I grew up in South Georgia, the Civil Rights era, and you know, a lot of kids read about it in the books. I experienced it. Martin Luther King's first march was 60 miles from where I grew up, the library in Albany, Georgia. I saw that. One thing that stays with me, he told me, he said, don't ever, ever give up. Don't ever give up. You go out, you make it happen. And in his own vernacular, he would say, you carry my name. Don't go anywhere in this world because your reputation will go places you will never visit. He said, don't go anywhere and shame my name. They held us accountable and responsible, and failure was not an option. My faith and my parents and a good support system in that community, they made sure we had every opportunity. They made sure we excelled. You got in trouble in school, you didn't have to worry about the teacher. Everybody in the community got on you before you got home. The worst, and I close with this. When I went back to my high school a couple of years ago to speak for Honors Day, I walked in the principal's office there, Wilcox County High School, and I stood outside, and the assistant said, well, what's wrong? I said, only if you knew what happened in this office when I was in the 10th grade. He said, well, what? I said, I got in a fight with a young man about an automobile. My dad, 10th grade, got off his tractor, working in the field, came down to that principal's office and whipped my butt right there with the principal in the office. And he said, I sent you here to get an education and not to act a fool. Who cares which car can run the fastest. If I come down here again, I swear to God in heaven, I will take you out. That was it. They didn't play. They valued education. They value because he didn't achieve a high school diploma, but he made sure all of us did. A quick history of that family. My older brother Marvin, Tuskegee University, veterinary medicine, Vietnam vet, retired now, back on the home plate. My second sister, Willa, who started out at Fort Valley State, fell in love, wanted to get married, dropped out at junior high school. My dad and mom allowed her to get married, provided she would go back and finish. Well, at a young old age of 64, 3 grown daughters later, and an ex-husband, oh my God, she finally got her degree that she promised my mom and dad she would get some 40 years ago. And she just got admitted to a master's program at 64 years of age. And my second brother, Henry, Savannah State, University of Tennessee, electrical engineer. Georgia Tech, Valdosta State University, public service master's, and he's electrical engineer and supervisor with Georgia Power, covering Albany, Valdosta, Thomasville, and he's an adjunct professor at Albany Technical College, teaching electrical engineering. My second sister, Vivian, undergrad in nursing and biology, a master's in nursing at Medical College of Georgia. She's now a college professor at Macon State College, which is Central Georgia College now. Then Northern Junior went the trade school route. He's a management associate with Amherst, New York, General Motors. Then James went the trade school route. He has his own mobile mechanic business here in Metro Atlanta, doing extremely well. Yours truly, 23-year retiree from the military, BS degree in criminology, Albany State University, graduate of John Reed School of Interrogation and Investigation in Chicago, Illinois. And David, my younger brother, Georgia Southwestern, and recently, Strayer University. Now that's all from a man who had a 5th grade education. Failure was not an option. He didn't depend on anyone to help him with anything. He said, God has given me the ability and strength to go out and make it happen. I would not accept any excuses. That's where I attribute my success. So when you see me talk the way I do, I've been blessed. Growing up, as I said, without indoor plumbing, I can truly say I've been from the outhouse to the White House. For a little kid out of South Georgia. But I had that support system.
Good questions. It's almost lunchtime. Danielle, one last word?
I have just one cheap idea that would really help the whole state and the whole country. You should be able to walk into any school in this country and walk up to a single student and ask them their name and the year they're going to graduate from high school. That should be so automatic as waking up in the morning. That sets goals, educational goals. And it doesn't cost a penny, but it makes a positive mindset.
Yep. And you know, you see that in some of our charter schools and private schools where they not only tell you when they're going to graduate, but they also tell you the school that they're going to go to for their bachelor's and the school that they're going to go to for graduate school and what they want to be. They can tell you the story. You know, for me, it was great. As you all know, my mama's name is Beulah May. And Beulah May raised me with a strong Christian background. She started a church with someone. And she said, never let anyone else's limitations be your own. And, you know, I attribute my success to gaining those soft skills. My job would argue lack thereof, but that's because I hold you accountable for the impact that you say you're going to do in the community. So when it comes to just the church background that I had, you know, being the head usher and making sure that at age 12 that, okay, did you pay your little dues? Okay, all right, I got the key. And I used to be in Kinko's, you know, the real copying and pasting with the whiteout and cutting things out. So, you know, those skills helped me to be where I'm at now. And even with an education, you always have to have something to complement that and put it to greater use. And so for me, I think it's not enough for us to just teach students about standards, because you also need to teach students about service work as well. Because you know, you have to really value and see the impact of what you're doing, and no matter what you're doing. It doesn't even matter if you're a CNA and your job is to wipe. appropriate spots when necessary. And so it's important because it all plays a role in the service piece to that. And, you know, that's the part that I'm thankful for, and that's the part that I pray that we give not only our schools, but it starts at home. So any parent who calls me, I always make sure I speak from that Christian space. I can't say, you know, I'm a believer unless they call it out first, but that's how I operate, and that's how I serve and encourage other people to serve.
Well, I want you to give our panel a hand here.